Q&A session. I guess we don't invite it, so I invite back Ryan and George.
Okay. So, well, they always call me Jorge. My name is actually Portuguese origin, but you know, when I first arrived in Canada, you know, they called me throughout my entire school Jorge, because you know, when you look at the spelling of the name, they assume it's Spanish. But in Portuguese, we actually say Jorge. For British, George, French, George. So you can choose the language of the choice. Praticamente
All right, I'll start with Wasim, obviously. I wanted I'll start from the beginning. How did you get into the blockchain? Before this, what were you doing?
Yeah, so I worked actually in technology for the last 20 years. I was a...
Everyone can hear it, right?
Yeah, you can hear it, right. So I've been working in technology for the last 20 years. I used to be an employee for Nokia since 2006. Then afterwards I became a partner for Nokia Microsoft when the merger happened in 2010. Then over the years I became a distribution partner for services and devices for Apple, Samsung, Huawei, Lenovo, in some parts of the Middle East. And then I was based out of Erbil, Iraq, and then in 2014, when the war erupted in that place, I decided to bring the family back to Dubai, set up a technology-focused company. That's when we started having some interest in what are the latest technologies. So blockchain came, mining at the time. Ryan was interested in investing in mining.
When was this?
That was 2015. We almost burned the house, just for you to know. We had a couple of
Bitcoin or Ethereum?
which ones was it?
Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin.
That was ASICs or it was
ASICs.
There's ASICs.
Originally, graphics card, but then
Yeah.
there was a time where yeah, and then it just got to a point where graphics cards weren't viable anymore.
How many graphics cards do you have?
So we had about 150 ASIC machines working in UAE.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no.
Cooling down and all that.
And yeah, we almost burned down the house, quite literally.
Oh, wow.
You know, with the first, I think, few, maybe 4 or 5 machines that were operating in the doghouse with a special air conditioning for it.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, so that's the sidekick, basically, where Ryan started enterprising, and then we started, like proposing our solution to different legal entities. That led us to the healthcare.
And one question to Ryan is, you saw that Disney, the Disney, the movie, or it's a documentary. Then you went to your school and your school project, or it was like your side gig, you basically wanted to find out and research about it. What is the one stat you found out that really moved you?
Sorry?
That one statistics or some kind of research or other than the story.
Yeah, well, no, generally, just doing research, seeing all these problems with organ donation, and that there are hundreds of thousands of people just like him, desperate for organs, and there was no real way to connect donors and recipients. And no, it wasn't sort of a school project. It was more of a thing I was researching at first and just presenting at different competitions and hackathons for young kids here in UAE. And one time I got lucky. One of the judges were an innovation officer at the health authority, and that's what really kicked it off. Made me think, I could make this into something bigger, and work with my dad and actually create a solution.
But Ryan at the time was participating in 1 million Arab Covers, which is the Dubai Future Foundation's challenge. And I was trying to push him away with...
2015?
No, this is 2017.
17?
Yeah, October 2017.
That time was 15-year-old? What was the age?
14 and a half.
14. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't know what I was doing 14 years old.
Yeah. No, I know.
Well, I mean, but it's good. I mean, the future is in good hands. You need coders and people who think out of the box and take action, you know, to make change happen. So after that, you basically took part in hackathons, and then when did you start the company? You know, like what basically made you serious about this venture?
So, you know, when Ryan was participating in the AI IQPC AI Week, AI Hackathon. So the Chief Innovation Officer, Safir Al-Humayri, asked him, you know, great, you know, amazing stuff you're presenting about, you know, organ provenance and organ allocation and precision, and you know, is there an adult that we can talk to about what you just presented? And I was waiting for him outside. I don't know if you saw that.
Why do you say that?
So he's asking, like, you know, as a ministry, who do we talk to? You know, you cannot talk to a 14-and-a-half-year-old and ask them to build for you the organ donation system for the government. So your question was, when did we set up the company?
Yes,
I'm sorry for taking a long detour, but to go back. So and then Sakar came to the stand, and then he said, okay, do you mind actually coming and seeing us? That's when we decided we're going to set up a separate company. We set it up here, and we came to set up here in 5. They said for under 18, it's not allowed. So we needed to register the company in my name. And you know, I refer to myself as custodian entertainment officer. So you know, that's the CEO.
All right, so that's a whole story about how you got
I can't own shares, I can't start businesses because under 18 in this country.
Okay. I thought my story was that I thought that you got to know the need analysis. You did research. You went home, did research, and then found out there's a need, and then you set up a license and all that. No, okay, I got it. So the minister basically asked, "There's a need. We are serious about this."
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So we want to support the startups. We want to, you know, if you're able to deliver on what you just showed in your hackathon, then we want to actually, you know, we want you to come and meet us and talk how we can, you know, align our strategy to whatever you're already able to develop. You claim you're able to develop.
Oh, fantastic. So before we started, did you do any like competitive analysis? Like, is there somebody did the same app before? If yes,
absolutely. So there's a lot of companies that work there's a lot of like organization that work in this field. So you know, if you look, for example, humus.org, it's a non-profit organization, and they are the ones that are aggregating all the information related to organ allocation. They have a calculator that is available, you know, free of charge on the internet. There's organdonor.co.uk, which is mainly the UK's part. There's CPRD, where you can actually go and that's also UK-based data company, open data company, where you can try and, like, if you have any algorithm and you want access to that data, you're able to do that. You need to have some kind of an agreement with like a university or an academic partner for quality assurance and all of that.
Oh, great. George, you have been to many seminars around the world, you know, like many conferences. Did you see anything similar in the healthcare or MIT?
No, I tend to believe the solution they have here is quite unique, and it's quite usually we call this in our business a unique value proposition.
Great.
So when you have this kind of innovation, I think they have winning solutions, but it's like every solution I've seen in software over the last 34 years. It has to be good, that's the one, but you have to help drive adoption to that solution to actually gain the most amount of traction. And this applies, by the way, if you know the story of VHS and Betamax. Betamax was superior, more resolution, but it never went. So we had more movies, so it was VHS. So sometimes we have to realize that the adoption enables you to get proper traction. So you have to do a lot of effort to actually get that adoption. Sometimes that adoption today is why most organizations that want to drive better adoption build the right ecosystem. So instead of trying to do everything themselves, because at the end of the day, in business you cannot be good at everything. So I usually call it MBC, money, brains, and contacts. So maybe you're good at money, maybe you're good at the brains and the idea, but you need contacts or a vast network to actually help distribute this solution. And once you do that, then magic happens.
Yes, yes. So we go to one of the most important thing is a little bit, we go slowly technical, so these guys have techies are here, truly. So one thing is blockchain policy and governance, which you're basically using enterprise hyperledger fabric, right?
Yeah.
It's 2.0 or it's
2.0 now is coming up,
okay.
but at the time it was 1.4.
Okay. And basically, what kind of like how do you decide to choose hyperledger instead of some other technology?
Sure.
And what kind of governance standards and all do you use like research before choosing hyperledger?
So I think the UAE has helped us quite a bit with the selection. They didn't give us a choice. So basically today, all of the projects that are being implemented in the private sector, public sector, they're mostly enterprise solutions. And for you to do that, it requires for them to have better control over it. There is no data allowed, specifically when it comes to export, there's no data allowed to be exported beyond the country. So all of the data has to be sitting behind something called FedNet, which Dr. Marwan, federal network basically. It's like an intranet where you're allowed to operate, and only specific applications would work with that. It's not like, so you would have to have, you host your own host, a couple of hosts would be, a couple of nodes would be the ones verifying. You're not going for a completely decentralized blockchain. So in a way, we didn't need to make the choice. Whatever we needed to, plus for all of the others, there is a certain high cost of adoption, which is, for example, in Ethereum you require gas, or and that is linked to the price of that token. And then all of a sudden, if you build something, tomorrow you might not be able to operate it because the cost per transaction is out of your control. So there are a number of reasons why the selection was quite easy for us.
So the government used basically permission private.
Yeah, and that's the third one I was going to get to, which is DESC, which is Dr. Marwan is the director there, have already authenticated the Ittisalat data center, which has Azure blockchain platform as a service, and Hyperledger to be the one operating there.
This is the Calgary Hyperledger Sawtooth. It should be Hyperledger Fabric.
Okay, so why Fabric? Fabric allows for the channel privacy. So every channel has its own privacy. So when you're talking about ID of the individual, the verification of his signature, he's listing all of his most private information. His blood type, that he is registered as a donor. Any of that data leaking out can become, the person can become a target. If he has a rare blood, then he can literally become a target. So there's a huge concern for privacy and data leakage. We required 34 certificate of data management, which we got via Microsoft, basically.
Okay, that was basically one of the questions about data privacy. Many people are saying that data privacy in blockchain is an oxymoron because, for example, in the recent privacy laws of GDPR, there's a rule of giving the owner of the data to change the data or delete the data. Right? It's something about
It's called the right
rights.
right to be forgotten.
Right to be forgotten.
Yeah.
In this case, how do you take care of blockchain, because it's immutable, right?
But it is possible. I think
It
George.
is possible. If the user signs the data with his signature, he can easily revoke that right. That means nobody else can actually see that data anymore.
Okay. So you're basically revoking the right. Maybe you were just deleting
So the hash data might stay there.
Yeah.
I mean,
The data stays there.
access to it.
Access to it is illegal.
There's ways to do it, it's not so not as
That's what people only refers to changing the values, not rather removing access to them.
Immutable does not mean visible.
Yeah.
Immutable means you cannot
You
change
cannot
it.
change.
Visible, it's how you make a
Because there's a huge debate also on privacy. Like say after 10, 20 years, the encryption is broken, you know, the data is there.
Quantum supremacy.
Yeah, I mean, it's people who just can access it. That's the whole concern, because it's not deleted per se. It's just the access report. So that's the whole debate going around in the whole blockchain sphere. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, so just to answer also on this one. So when you say that there's a blockchain system implemented, doesn't mean that everything is actually recorded onto that blockchain. It doesn't have to. The data can be encrypted and accessed, you know, on a siloed, a certain database, but the access to it is via the engine of the blockchain. So and that also,
it's a pointer.
yeah,
Okay.
and that allows for also better data management. You know, what kind of command you can create within the blockchain if somebody wants to, you know, like to invoke the right to access and so on and so forth. There are ways around it. It's just that.
So how many nodes like do you have? You mentioned 2 to 3 nodes.
Well, these were the you're actually we're partnered with Oracle. The last slide, which I didn't cover, which is who are our strategic partners today.
Okay.
So with Oracle, they are offering us the blockchain platform as a service in Saudi Arabia. They have the data center there.
Okay.
And in UAE, it is with Microsoft. So the number of nodes can actually increase or decrease based on the use case. So if we require more, we just can add more. You know, they will add to us. We will rent from them these additional nodes as per the requirement of the government.
See, the UAE government was even looking at potentially running nodes in the international embassies, because as you know, UAE is very small as a country. So although you may be running multiple nodes, the country is small. So if the country was to be invaded, the same way Kuwait got invaded, so that means you can control the nodes because they're in a small geography. But if you start putting the nodes in the international embassies, then each node kind of becomes a safe keeper. And it's still considered physical inside the country.
So
it's like a daily
I have a
embassy.
quick question. Okay, why not go for public? You know, like want to go for the public blockchain. You know, like Besu. You know, it's public. Sorry, it's permissioned public. Right, where you can access Ethereum. Okay, using it's a new thing. Okay, Hyperledger Fabric is just very close, but Besu basically does everything. It has private, public at the same time. You know, so you can access the Ethereum network, you know, and also the consortium nodes. Right.
It's really, I don't think it's a technical decision. It's a business decision. So both you can use one or the other. You may choose one over the other simply. It's a business decision, and that business decision typically is control. So if you're running the nodes, you have full control. If it's public, you have no control over the nodes. So you're still at the mercy of somebody else.
Yeah.
So if you have 100% control, then there's no issue.
I can add one thing here. Basically, Hyperledger Fabric is because worldwide there are many projects, the production grade project like Walmart is using Hyperledger Fabric. That's why people are thinking that it's a trusted project to work on rather than going with new one, and there can be the bottleneck or something like that. So
Yeah, that's a point. That's a point. But that comes one question we have in the research team is: do you use smart contracts? You use chain code, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but hold a second. So just on that.
Yeah.
So just there are also new technologies. I don't know if you know about a number of. There's a very interesting website. I think anyone who's in the blockchain field has to go to it. Toda.network. I think Toda.
Yes.
TODA.
Okay.
So they're applying a new way.
Tufi.
Tufi Samba. And then there's another company that is developing blockchain engine, which are agnostic, where you can publish on any you can publish on any kind of a blockchain, even Bitcoin.
Symbolic.
Visidox, the one that we know about in the UK. Okay. So there's a number, I think, the best slide that, you should really look at is the version 3, version 4, version 5. Yeah. Think about the internet, when it all started, and the dial-up and the infrastructure and this, how slow it was, and the number of transactions, people compared it to Visa from day one, for blockchain. I think, it's, and whether these engine and these accessibility and the IoT logs and all of that will be in the future all built on that, and being able to verify on a certain network or via a certain engine of blockchain, and then publish on multiple networks. Publish some stuff off-chain, some stuff on-chain, depending on the requirement and the use case and the business case. I think, you don't have to just stay on the headlines. The devil is always in the detail.
Yeah, and one of the details I want to know is, I guess, is something you always want to know, is security. People, I was reading the blockchain policy from IBM, Oracle, and PwC. One thing they're been discussing recently missing is how do you upgrade? Because the strength of blockchain is immutability.
Yeah.
And also it can be a big problem because once you deploy a smart contract, the participants can see with the code, right? And say if you want to update after 2-3 years, some smart contract gets really low and there's security holes.
Yeah.
How do you upgrade that? Ethereum says that, okay, this is work in progress, they're trying to make some standards. But for Hyperledger, I'm trying to find out, details about it. It's so hard to get it, because this can be a very big problem, like 3-4 years, 5 years down the line, because in the blockchain world, things move fast, So, you have any answer to that?
I think Jorge has the right answer.
No, it's like, see, software is the only technological world in which somebody sells you something that is broken and then you pay to fix it. You have to read it very carefully. This never happens with a car or a building or something, but it happens in software. And I think there was a fork in this business somewhere a long time ago, because I've been in this business for a long time. IBM, the typical manuals were from there until here, until the software got released. Then Microsoft came along and said, we need to do this. Just ship something, it's alpha, beta, the users will test it for us, and we fix it on the next release. So they changed the rules of the game dramatically. So time became more important than correctness. So that really means...
fake it till you make it.
Correct. Let's backtrack now to a very more serious note. The average code, for every 1,000 lines of code, there's some bug. For every 10,000 lines of code, there is a serious bug or sometimes we call serious vulnerability. That's a fact of life. So that really means that if you live in the software world, you have to put a change management in place that allows you to have version control and you go to the next release as soon as you find. So the issue is how agile are you at making these changes? Places like Bitcoin, it's very difficult because it's made by consensus. And then consensus is not the consensus mechanism. It means a majority of the miners have to say, okay, yes, we run the new release. If they don't, nothing happens. So when you're running much smaller versions of the software, it becomes very easy to upgrade and fix bugs much quicker. So you become much more agile, making sure that what you're delivering is safe. So if you find some safety risks, you fix them, you release them as quickly as they're found.
And I think, just to add to that remark, I think the key thing is today with all of the majors, the VPC majors, or virtual private cloud, and like AWS, Azure, Oracle Cloud, which now have also an agreement with Azure. All of those now offer blockchain platform as a service. So there is no reason for you to go and think of all the nodes. And all of that technical, like physical, technical requirement is managed for you. You just need to build your use case, that, whatever you want to call it, on top of an existing infrastructure, which auto-update, which guarantees by agreement that they were actually upgraded to the last version as soon as it becomes available. And then when you team that up with with like local.
We're going to go there, audience.
Yeah.
That's I can see. One last question before I go to you. It is basically regarding your business model. Okay. What is your business model? You know, in this situation, like for Dhonor and for Verofax.
So, all right. So we had phase 1, phase 2, phase 3.
Yeah.
So phase 1 and phase 2, we were doing. It was a simple contract. We received some grant money from Pfizer. We received some contract money from the government. Some awards along the line. You know, some cookies, and we built that solution for them. Going forward to the verification, the provenance verification, how can you have that DNA taken? The law prevents any harvesting of organ or transplanting without registering that DNA fingerprint, and which is a simple digital number of the concentration of certain chemicals on certain addresses in the genome. That's as easy as it is. And then that being the basis for them, each time a transplant is done, there needs to also be take a DNA swab, you know, send it on to the lab, which uploads onto the blockchain again, and then we're able to say matching or not matching. It's that easy, right? So on that one, we're actually working with the ministry on a revenue sharing kind of a model, where we would charge the hospital that need to do the verification as per the regulation.
Okay.
It's like a PPT.
Yeah.
What's the PPP?
Public-private partnership.
Public-private partnership. So basically, monthly you charge like
Monthly per transaction.
per transaction. Oh, nice. Okay.
So annual and per transaction.
Look at it very simple. It works the same way as the speed radars.
Yeah. It's a very radar for organs. Exactly. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so I'll open the floor to questions. Just introduce yourself and say what you're doing, what project you're doing, and then you can ask questions. So who was the first one?
I'm Mohammad Ishfaq, by profession I'm project manager, and thanks a lot. Very interesting use case, and then followed by few slides, but I would say a whole world of blockchain, the major concepts, just in few slides. So my question is for George. What Huawei is doing for the scalability? Because as you know, for Ethereum, just one application cryptography impacted a lot on the performance. And as Mr. Wasim said that they are not recording all the transactions, maybe that is logical. But there are use cases we need to record on the blockchain. So what Huawei is doing for scalability?
Many things actually. Huawei is actually helping build smart cities, which is to some extent the ultimate IoT project where you have millions of sensors generating data. You need to make sure this data is trusted. Today in the area of blockchain, Huawei is using Hyperledger and Fiber as the means to have that technology. And they're running it on hypervisor-based technology, whether it's ours or somebody else who support. It's basically OpenStack based, so it runs inside a container. For those not container, it's Docker, which is a software container. So this enables you to have a very open solution. Besides the capability of having high degrees of scalability, which are there, Huawei is investing a lot in hardware. So what kinds of things that speed up? One is solid state memory and solid state disk. So Huawei makes their own solid state chips, the same as Samsung makes. So that means, just to give you an idea, 2.5-inch drive that about 3 years we're selling at the same price as a spin drive. Today, 3 years ago was 3.2 terabytes, today is 32 terabytes. So in 3 years, 2.5 years, it went by a factor of 10 and the price has come down dramatically. So all those savings introduce scalability and speed and cost of operation. But we're doing it not just inside this drive as an example. We have a lot of investment in the chipsets. So Huawei is invested in what's called AI chips. So they have their own, I can say the best way to describe it, version of NVIDIA. So that they have written their own. So they run on things like mobile phones. So you can use for imaging, for voice recognition. And they have put this all the way up to the data center. So you can put it on edge machines, edge meaning like on the edge of the network, or you can put it inside the data center for basically very strong AI processing. The third area that Huawei is doing a as it used to 5G. 5G today, by the way, forget the things that are going on. 5G is primarily what I sometimes refer to as fiber over the air. So you have to imagine yourself. Before you had to run a cable, any place you need high-speed transmission. Today you no longer need to run a cable. It does not mean that the cables are running away. It just means that now you have more choice. So you have more flexibility. And if you think 5G is fast, the work is already 6G is just already been designed and tested. So 5G is already out the door. So the work is on the next battle. So, and all these technologies enable millions of transactions, very low latency, like we're talking below millisecond. So this enables you to do things like smart cars, driverless cars, and so on. Exactly. And all these combination together, it's what is enable the speed that we have. So, and by the way, this is also the last point, is what we call the amount of transistors that you can put on a chip. So today the standard for Intel is about 14 nanometers. So today Huawei is on ARM chips that are 7 nanometers, and we're already have designs for 5 and 2 nanometers over the next 3 to 4 years. So this is the kind of density that you're talking about. So we're going to be able to squeeze a lot more chips in a small amount of space, while at the same time using less electricity and more efficient, basically building more efficient things. It's last point. Last year, Huawei spent more on R&D than Apple. So most people don't realize this, but it's really most people think it comes from magic. No, it's really a lot.
Apple doesn't mean Apple, it's being marketed.
So you need to invest a lot to get these kind of results. So we have a lot of PhDs, working away 7 days a week, and then after a few years, magic happens. And that's it.
So, one last question.
Sure.
As you told, Huawei is working a lot on 5G. We have been hearing also on this. And in coming years, when IoT is becoming a kind of everyday's use.
Yeah, you have some experimental cases going on. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, and then how it's, we are hearing, but not much there, like there will be a kind of combination, like joining hands between artificial intelligence, then IoT, then blockchain. So how you foresee like blockchain will be part of that?
Okay. That's actually a good question. It's not in this presentation, but I think the thing that it's not one technology. Most people, if you go back 3 or 4 years, blockchain is going to solve all the problems of the world. If you go back 20 years, relational databases were going to solve all the problems in the world. I worked with Oracle when it was version 3 point something. It was, we used to say that Oracle worked very good on a projector, but that's not the point. The real more serious point, I can have a lot of fun with this. So, the technology today, the big advancement is how you combine technologies together. So on one side, you have IoT. IoT generates lots of data, but there's a problem with trust. So you take IoT, you bring in blockchain to add trust to IoT, but IoT just generates data, so you need to store that data in a fast way, transmit it, but it does not extract value from the data. So today you extract value from the data primarily from big data, Hadoop, Spark, Storm, all these. The problem with big data today is that we don't have enough data scientists, meaning that there's a few thousand of them, very expensive. So this is where AI came. By the way, AI has been around for 40 years. It's not like AI. What happened between 40 years and the last 2 or 3 years? It's really the speed of the machines and all that enable you to now practically and cost-effectively do what a few years ago you could not. That's it. So it's a combination of all these things. And I think other technologies are going to play an extremely important role, like robotics and others, 3D printing, just to name a few, nanotechnology. So if you look at the World Economic Forum, they've identified something like 14 or 15 key technologies that they consider key technologies to help shape the advances that are happening in today's world. So, but it's not one, it's how you combine these technologies together to actually make a product and a solution that is going to be quite valuable, not just one technology by itself.
Thank you. What's the next question? Anybody?
I don't have questions, but I have
Okay, introduce yourself.
two points I can to your questions actually to those.
Yes.
So I am in Narendranath, blockchain software engineer from Consensus. So the first, not first exactly, the last question asked, right? Is about the data, right? Between the IoT. Not exactly, so I'm not arguing for that. The upgrading the smart contracts, to avoid security access. So the Ethereum and Bitcoin, these other public chains are running with the UTXO model. But the Fabric especially is running with the state-based model. So in that case, you can upgrade anything. You can change even update the data, update the smart contracts to as you told, you can have a version 0, version 1, version 2. So because these are all working with the state-based, and the other side is completely UTXO model. So both are completely different.
Yeah.
So the other one is you asked why Fabric, why not Pesu? As we are the builders of the Pesu, because Hyperledger Pesu came from the Consensus, but they're completely different tracks. Even though the Pesu is given the private way, but the Fabric is completely different. I'll tell you one example. When we got a project from DED, I know everyone aware of the DED. If you want to get a license in Dubai, like DED, DS4, DMC, these guys need to issue the license. So these are all different entities. They are issuing license, but they itself doesn't have a single network to track all the licenses. So that's the problem statement. 2 years back, the problem statement was given to us, and we first introduced the Ethereum, but they simply rejected it because of, as Wasim told, there are many reasons. Like example, if you take the Fabric, you will have everything, permission, everything, but that is not present in the Ethereum. So that is where, especially in UAE, Dubai, the majority is Hyperledger Fabric compared to Ethereum or Bitcoin or Peso or anything.
They're very safe.
But actually, I have a question for Consensus related to the implementation of Hyperledger projects and so on and so forth. Because I know that, for example, Consensus worked with Do, which is a telco operator, to build a blockchain platform as a service, and we were looking actually at hosting our solution on their blockchain platform as a service. But then we came to realize that we cannot do that. Because apparently, although they use the word blockchain and Hyperledger are there, there are certain structures where the blockchain is a hybrid solution, and therefore there could be leakages in other places beyond, your. And correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I'm in that team only, that VPAS team only.
Okay.
That is going to release in 2 months, but there are lots of consequences happening. This complete your data will be present in the private data center. Right, in Dubai, basically the disk is because of the principles, because of the rules, even it is not allowing AWS because they doesn't have a data center in UAE. Azure only has a data center in UAE. That's where Oracle is having VPAS with Azure. Even they will not allow anyone because they have a very strong security rules through disk. So these VPAS we are hosting in a private infrastructure in Do itself. Do you know Dubai Pulse? That is Dubai. Yeah, as of now we got some environment in Dubai Pulse for the testing purpose, but there will be a dedicated hardware will be provided by Do.
But at the time, that's the one thing that actually prevented us, which is the testing that was done, onto that environment. We received that one question: is it a hybrid setting or that they built based on the VPAS testing that they've done? And then they said, no, you cannot go ahead with the current setting with 2. You need to go to a place where you can verify that it's not a hybrid setting. Because then data leakage becomes, and that's why, as you rightly said, Desk have 34 data management certification required for you to ensure, data privacy, regardless of which it's not GDPR, but whatever.
This certification required by the federal government?
So basically, for you to manage healthcare data and not to be fined 7.3 million dirhams if you're managing, if you're touching that data. 7.3 million
dirhams per instance, or
per application, per company, per.
Okay.
So the basic,
GBA is 4 or 5%.
Yeah, exactly.
Worse.
Exactly.
So basically, if you build a application or a website or an Android app or iOS or anything,
Yeah.
if government is trying to utilize that application by utilizing their data, then disk approval is must. Without disk, governments will never come.
Okay, this stands for what?
DESC,
DESC.
Dubai Electronic Securities and Center.
Yeah.
Okay, that's only for Dubai, right? It's not for the.
They
Very
do also.
good UAE.
It's covered UAE.
Yes.
Okay.
It's in Emirates Towers. It's like a think tank.
Okay, Dubai.
So
Okay.
it's-
Okay, that's very interesting.
Thank you. It was-
Okay, any questions? Any more questions?
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Let's give
Good
a
to
one final round of applause. Yeah, let's take a photo.
How many more next week?
Huh?
You want them next week?
Yeah, of course. Maybe actually, sure. I want everybody to come to stage so we can take a picture in the picture.
Everybody?
Yeah.
Oh, just me?
You know that.
We're planning to
Yeah,